present 12% to 7% for those having total income of more than 1 crore and up to 10 crores. This would help in enhancing income of cooperative societies and its members.
कोऑपरेटिव्ह सोसायटीजला 1 ते 10 कोटी पर्यंतचं उत्पन्न असलेल्यांना 12% 60% पर्यंतचा त्यांचा कर कमी करण्यात आलेला आहे.
Parent or guardian of a differently abled person can take an insurance scheme for such person. The present law provides for deduction to the parent or guardian only if the lump sum payment or annuity is available to the differently abled person on the death of the subscriber, that is the parent or the guardian. There could be situations where the differently abled dependent may need payment of annuity or lump sum amount even during the lifetime of their parent or guardian. I propose thus to allow the payment of annuity and lump sum amount to the differently abled dependent during the lifetime of the parent and guardians, that is parent or guardians attaining the age of 60 years.
दिव्यांग मुलांसाठी पालक इन्शुरन्सची स्कीम घेऊ शकतात, मात्र त्याचे फायदे त्या पालकाच्या मृत्यूनंतरच दिले जात होते. मात्र असं लक्षात आलंय की त्या दिव्यांग व्यक्तीला पालक जिवंत असताना सुद्धा त्या पैशाची गरज लागू शकते. त्यामुळे त्या पद्धतीचे बदल नियमात करण्यात आलेले आहेत.
National Pension System NPS Tier 1. This is allowed as a deduction in computing the income of the employee. However, such deduction is allowed only to the extent of 10% of the salary in case of employees of the state governments. To provide equal treatment to both central and state government employees, I propose to increase the tax deduction limit from 10% to 14% on employers' contribution to the NPS account.
NPS अकाउंटच्या माध्यमातून जे एम्प्लॉईजचं कॉन्ट्रिब्युशन असतं त्याच्यावरचा टॅक्स
social security benefits of the state government employees
राज्य सरकार आणि केंद्र सरकारच्या कर्मचाऱ्यांसाठी सारखा करण्यात आलेला आहे, जो पूर्वी राज्य सरकारच्या कर्मचाऱ्यांसाठी कमी होता.
Startups have emerged as drivers of growth for our economy. Over the past few years, the country has seen a manifold increase in successful startups. Eligible startups established before 31/3/2022 had been provided a tax incentive for 3 consecutive years out of the 10 years from incorporation. In view of the COVID pandemic, I propose to extend the period of incorporation of the eligible startup by 1 more year, that is up to 31/3/2023, for providing such tax incentives.
स्टार्टअप्स ज्यांना उभारायचे असते त्यांच्यासाठी जे टॅक्स मधली सवलत होती ती आणखीन 1 वर्षांनी वाढवण्यात आलेली आहे.
Under concessional tax regime, in an effort to establish a global competitive business environment for certain domestic companies, a concessional tax regime of 15% was introduced by our government for newly incorporated domestic manufacturing companies. I propose to extend the last date for commencement of manufacturing or production under Section 115B AB by 1 more year, that is from 31st March 2023 to 31st March.
देशातल्या काही उत्पादन करणाऱ्या कंपन्यांना टॅक्स मधून दिलासा देण्यात आलेला होता, जेणेकरून त्या कंपन्या त्यांचे प्रॉडक्ट सुद्धा जगातल्या कंपन्यांशी स्पर्धा करू शकतील. तो दिलासा आणखी 1 वर्षांनी वाढवण्यात आलेला आहे.
Virtual digital assets. There has been a phenomenal increase in transaction in virtual digital assets. The magnitude and frequency of these transactions have made it imperative to provide for a specific tax regime. Accordingly, for the taxation of virtual digital assets, I propose to provide that any income from transfer of any virtual digital asset shall be taxed at the rate of 30%. No deduction in respect of any expenditure or allowance
व्हर्च्युअल
shall be allowed
डिजिटल
while
असेट्स
computing such income
जर तुमच्या नावावर केले गेले तर त्याला 30% कर द्यावा लागणार.
Loss from transfer of virtual digital asset cannot be set off against any other income. Further, in order to capture the transaction details, I also propose to provide for TDS on payment made in relation to transfer of virtual digital asset at the rate of 1% of such consideration above a monetary threshold. Gift of virtual digital asset is also proposed to be taxed in the hands of the recipient. Litigation management to avoid repetitive appeals by the department. It has been observed that a lot of time and resources are consumed in filing of appeals which involve identical issues. Taking forward our policy of sound litigation management, I propose to provide that if a question of law in the case of an assessee is identical to a question of law which is pending in the appeal before a jurisdictional high court or Supreme Court, in any case, the filing of further appeal in the case of this assessee by the department shall be deferred till such a question of law is decided by the jurisdictional high court or the Supreme Court. This will greatly help in reducing the repeated litigation between taxpayer and the department. Taking forward our efforts to further promote the IFSC, I hereby propose to provide that income of a non-resident from offshore derivative instruments or over-the-counter derivatives issued by an offshore banking unit, income from royalty and interest on account of lease of ship, and income received from portfolio management services in IFSC shall be exempt from tax subject to specified conditions. Rationalization of surcharge. In the globalized business world, there are several work contracts whose terms and conditions mandatorily require formation of a consortium. The members in the consortium are generally companies. In such cases, the income of these AOPs has to suffer a graded surcharge up to 37%, which is a lot more than surcharge on the individual companies. Accordingly, I propose to cap the surcharge of these AOPs at 15%.
AOPs म्हणजे काही कंपन्या एकत्र येऊन जे कन्सोर्शियम तयार करतात त्यांना सरचार्ज लावला जात होता मोठ्या प्रमाणात, जो इंडिव्हिज्युअल कंपन्यांपेक्षा जास्त असायचा तो आता कमी केला जातोय.
While other long-term capital gains are subjected to a graded surcharge which goes up to 37%. I propose to cap the surcharge on long-term capital gains arising on transfer of any type of assets at 15%. This step will give a boost to startup community and along with
अशा ज्या कंपन्यांचा कन्सोर्शियम आहे त्यांना जो सरचार्ज लावला जाईल तो आता 15% इतकाच असेल.
reaffirms our commitment to आत्मनिर्भर
हा
भारत.
सरचार्ज कमी केल्यामुळे स्टार्टअप्स चे ग्रुप बनण्यास खूप मोठा फायदा होणार आहे.
As business expenditure. The income tax is not an allowable expenditure for computation of business income. This includes tax as well as surcharges. The health and education cess is imposed as an additional surcharge on the taxpayer for funding specific government welfare programs. However, some courts have allowed health and education cess as business expenditure, which is against the legislative intent. To reiterate the legislative intent, I propose to clarify that any surcharge or cess on income and profits is not allowable as business expenditure. Deterrence against tax evasion.
कुठलाही सेस जो लावला जातो मग तो आरोग्य आणि शिक्षणावरचा सेस असेल तो बिझनेस एक्सपेंडिचर म्हणून धरला जाणार नाही.
Income detected in search operations. It has been observed that in many cases where undisclosed income or suppression of sales, etc., is detected, payment of tax is avoided by setting off of losses. In order to bring certainty, and to increase deterrence among tax evaders, I propose to provide that no set-off of any loss shall be allowed against undisclosed income detected during search and survey operations.
कर चुकवेगिरीला आळा घालण्यासाठी सरकार काही योजना जाहीर करत आहे.
It has been noticed that as a business promotion strategy, there is a tendency on businesses to pass on benefits to their agents.
जाहीर न केलेलं उत्पन्न असेल आणि त्यानुसार जर तुम्हाला झालेला तोटा दाखवत असाल तर तो मान्य केला जाणार नाही.
By the person giving benefits if the aggregate value of such benefits exceeds 20,000 rupees during the financial year. A few other changes are being made, the details of which are there in the finance bill. Indirect taxes. So remarkable progress in GST. GST has been a landmark reform of independent India, showcasing the spirit of cooperative federalism. While aspirations were high, there were huge challenges too. These challenges were overcome deftly and painstakingly under the guidance and the oversight of the GST Council. We can now take pride in a fully IT-driven and progressive GST regime that has fulfilled the cherished dream of India as one market, one tax. There are still some challenges remaining and we aspire to meet them in the coming year.
गेल्या काही वर्षात जीएसटीची जी रचना आहे त्यात बरेच बदल झालेले आहेत आणि आपलं जे स्वप्न होतं एक मार्केट एक कर असं जे स्वप्न होतं ते पूर्णत्वास आलंय. मात्र अजूनही काही बदल करणं बाकी आहे.
GST revenues are buoyant despite the pandemic. I would
कोरोनाचा काळ असून सुद्धा जीएसटीचे जे रेव्हेन्यूज होते ते मोठ्या प्रमाणात वाढतानाच दिसतात आहे.
The Honorable House. I would like to bring to the notice of this House. I would like to bring to the notice of this House that the gross GST collections for the month of January 22 are rupees 1,40,986 crores.
गेला महिना म्हणजे जानेवारी 2022चाच फक्त विचार केला तर 1,40,986 कोटी इतकं जीएसटीचं कलेक्शन झालेलं आहे जे जीएसटी लागू केल्यापासून सर्वाधिक आहे.
Growth recovery post COVID.
हे कशामुळे शक्य झालं तर कोरोनाचा काळ असताना सुद्धा
economic recovery post COVID as well as various policy and administration taken.
आपण जे अर्थव्यवस्थेचं पुनरुज्जीवन करण्याचा प्रयत्न केला त्या उपाययोजना यशस्वी होताना दिसतात आणि म्हणूनच आपल्याला हे जीएसटीचं कलेक्शन दिसतंय.
To the changes but enthusiastically contributed to the cost of paying taxes. Special economic zones. In part A of my speech, I have referred to the proposed reforms in SEZs. Alongside, we will also undertake reforms in customs
मध्ये बदल केले जातील हे मी माझ्या भाषणाच्या भाग अ मध्ये सांगितलेलं आहे.
Function on the customs national portal with a focus on
त्या बदलांच्या नुसारच त्या SEZ साठीच्या कर रचनेत सुद्धा बदल होतील.
Checks. This will ease doing business by SEZ units considerably. This reform shall be implemented by 30th September 2022. Customs reforms and duty rate changes. Customs administration has reinvented itself over the years through liberalized procedures.
कस्टम आणि ड्युटी मधल्या रेट्स मध्ये सुद्धा आता काही बदल आहेत.
During COVID-19 pandemic, customs formation have done exceptional frontline work against all odds, displaying agility and purpose. Customs reforms have played a very vital role in domestic capacity creation, providing level playing field to our MSMEs, easing the raw material supply side
कोरोनाच्या काळात कस्टम्स विभागाने खूप चांगलं काम केलेलं आहे
to other policy initiatives such as
त्यांच्या
PLI
मार्फतच
and
लघु
phased
उद्योगांना
manufacturing plants.
सहायता करणं
My
शक्य
proposal
झालेलं
on
आहे.
customs side are aligned to these objectives. Project imports and capital goods. National Capital Goods Policy 2016 aims at doubling the production of capital goods by 2025. This would create an employment opportunities and result in increased economic activity. However, several duty exemptions, even extending to over 3 decades, in some cases have been granted to capital goods for various sectors like power, fertilizer, textiles, leather footwear, food processing, and fertilizers. These exemptions have hindered the growth of the domestic capital goods sector. Similarly, project import duty concessions have also deprived the local producers of a level playing field in areas like coal mining projects, power generation, transmission, or distribution projects.
इम्पोर्ट ड्युटीमध्ये जे कन्सेशन्स गेल्या अनेक वर्षांपासून दिले जात आहेत त्यात आपले जे देशी उत्पादनं होते त्यांचा बऱ्याच वर्षांपासून समावेश केला जात नव्हता.
Make in India without significantly impacting the cost of essential imports. Accordingly, Honorable Speaker, sir, it is proposed to phase out the concessional rates in capital goods and project imports gradually and apply a moderate tariff of 7.5%. Certain exemptions for advanced machineries that are not manufactured within the country shall continue. A few exemptions are being introduced on inputs like specialized
काही
castings,
एक्झेम्पशन
ball
सोडले
screw,
तर
and
सगळ्यांसाठी
linear motion guide
7.5%
to encourage
रेट
domestic manufacturing
लागू केला
of
जाईल.
capital
मात्र
goods.
त्यात काही परदेशी
In the last two
कंपन्यांसाठी
budgets,
बदल असतील रेट.
we have rationalized several customs exemptions. We have once again carried out an extensive consultation, including by crowdsourcing. As a result of these consultations, more than 350 exemption entries are proposed to be gradually phased out. These include exemptions on certain
जे
agricultural
कन्सेशन्स
produce,
देत होते ते 350 पेक्षा जास्त प्रोडक्ट्स होते ज्याच्यावर गेल्या कित्येक वर्षांपासून कन्सेशन दिलं जात होतं. आम्ही आता
chemicals, fabrics,
टप्प्याटप्प्याने
medical devices and drugs,
अनेक
and
गोष्टींवरचं हे
medicines for which
कन्सेशन जे
sufficient
आहे ते
domestic
काढून
capacity
टाकणार आहोत.
exists. Further, as a simplification measure, several concessional rates are being incorporated in the customs tariff schedule itself instead of prescribing them through various notifications. This comprehensive review will simplify the customs rate and tariff structure, particularly for sectors like chemicals, textiles, and metals, and minimize disputes.
इम्पोर्ट ड्युटी आणि कस्टम्सच्या बाबतीतलं हे जे नवीन धोरण आहे त्यामुळे एक युनिफॉर्मिटी येण्याला मदत मिळणार आहे.
That go into manufacturing of intermediate products will go many a step forward in achieving our objective of Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat. I shall now take up specific sector-specific proposals. Electronics.
आता सेक्टर वाईज जे काही कराच्या बाबतीतले प्रपोजल्स आहेत ड्युटीच्या बाबतीतले आहेत ते सांगते. इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स.
To facilitate domestic manufacturing of wearable devices, hearable devices, and electronic smart meters. Duty concessions are being given to parts of transformer of mobile phone chargers and camera lens of mobile camera module and certain other such items. This will enable domestic manufacturing of high growth electronic items.
मोबाईलचे चार्जरचे ट्रान्सफॉर्मर्स आणि कॅमेरा लेन्सेस बनवणाऱ्यांना काही कन्सेशन्स दिले जातील जेणेकरून देशात आत्मनिर्भरतेच्या दृष्टीने पाऊल पुढे टाकलं जाईल.
Simply sawn diamond would attract nil customs duty. To facilitate export of jewelry through e-commerce, a simplified regulatory framework shall be implemented by June this year. To
दागिन्यांचा देशांतर्गत जो व्यवसाय आहे त्याला वाढ मिळावी या दृष्टीने
the customs duty on imitation jewelry is being prescribed in a manner that a duty of at least 400 rupees per kg is paid on its import. Chemicals. Customs duty on certain critical chemicals, namely methanol, acetic acid, and heavy feedstocks for petroleum refining are being reduced, while duty is being raised on sodium
काही
cyanide,
रसायनांवरची सुद्धा ड्युटी कमी केली जाते
in the domestic arena exists. These changes will help in enhancing domestic value addition. MSMEs.
देशी उद्योगांना ज्या रसायनांची आवश्यकता आहे त्यांच्यावरची ड्युटी कमी करण्याचा सरकारचा प्रयत्न आहे.
To parts of umbrellas is being withdrawn. Exemption is also being rationalized on implements and tools for agricultural sector which are manufactured in India. Customs duty exemption given to steel scrap last year is being extended for another year to provide relief to MSME secondary steel producers.
स्टील स्क्रॅपला जे कस्टम ड्युटीचं एक्झेम्पशन दिलं होतं गेल्या वर्षीच्या अर्थसंकल्पात ते याही वर्षी दिलं जाईल जेणेकरून लघु उद्योगांना त्याचा फायदा होईल.
Steel flat products, bars of alloy steel and high speed steel are being revoked in larger public interest considering prevailing high prices of metals.
वेगवेगळ्या प्रकारचे जे स्टील आहे, अलॉय स्टील आहे, तसंच बाकीचे स्टील आहेत त्यांची ही ड्युटी मागे घेतली जाते जेणेकरून उद्योगांना याचा फायदा होईल.
Buttons, zipper, lining material, specified leather, furniture fittings and packaging boxes that may be needed by bona fide exporters of handicrafts, textiles, leather garments, leather footwear and other goods. Honorable Speaker, sir, duty is being reduced.
देशातल्या उद्योगांना ज्या पद्धतीचं चामडं, बॉक्सेस अशा गोष्टी लागतात त्यांचे प्रॉडक्ट्स विकण्यासाठी त्याच्यावरची सुद्धा ड्युटी कमी केली जाते.
Measure to encourage blending of fuel. Blending of fuel is a priority for this government. To encourage the efforts for blending of fuel, unblended fuel shall attract an additional differential excise duty of ₹2 per litre from first day of October 22.
ब्लेंडिंग ऑफ फ्युएल्स म्हणजे दोन प्रकारची इंधने एकत्रित करणं ही याला सरकार प्रोत्साहन देऊ शकतं, देऊ इच्छितं आणि म्हणूनच
are there in the finance bill. Mr. Speaker, sir,
म्हणून जे अनब्लेंडेड फ्युएल असेल म्हणजे
budget to this August House.
म्हणजे दोन प्रकारचे इंधन ज्यात नसेल त्या इंधनाला एक्स्ट्रा ड्युटी लागू होईल.
श्रीमती निर्मला सीतारमन जी.
Sir, with your permission, I rise to lay on the table the following statements under Section 3(1) of the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management FRBM Act
अर्थसंकल्पीय भाषण आता संपलेलं आहे. बाकीचे पेपर्स पटलावर ठेवण्याचं काम सुरू आहे.
आइटम नंबर 3 वित्त विधेयक 2020 निर्मला सीतारमन जी.
Sir, item number 3, Finance Bill. Sir, with your permission, I rise to move for leave to introduce the Finance Bill 2022.
प्रश्न ये कि वित्त विधेयक को प्रस्तावित करने की अनुमति प्रदान की जाए. जो सदस्य इसके पक्ष में हाँ कहें, जो सदस्य विरोध में ना कहें. मेरे विचार में निर्णय हाँ वालों के पक्ष में, हाँ वालों के पक्ष में. माननीय मंत्री जी वित्त विधेयक को प्रस्तावित करें.
Sir, I introduce the bill.
सभा की कार्रवाई कल बुधवार दिनांक 2 फरवरी 2022 को 4:30 बजे तक के लिए स्थगित की जाती है.
तेव्हा बजेट सादर झालेलं आहे, अर्थसंकल्प सादर झालेला आहे आणि 2 ते 3 मोठे महत्त्वाचे मुद्दे याच्यामधले समोर येत आहेत. एक तर आयकरात कोणत्याही प्रकारचा बदल करण्यात आलेला नाही. खूप मोठ्या अपेक्षा होत्या. गेल्या 2 वर्षातल्या कोरोना काळानंतर करदात्यांना थोडासा दिलासा मिळेल, स्लॅबमध्ये काही चेंजेस होतील, स्टँडर्ड डिडक्शनमध्ये काही चेंजेस होतील, पण तसं काही झालेलं दिसत नाहीये. सलग 6व्या वर्षी आयकरामध्ये कोणत्याही प्रकारचा बदल नाही, कोणत्याही स्लॅबमध्ये बदल नाही. ही एक महत्त्वाची अपडेट या बजेटमधून. अनेक गोष्टी आहेत ज्याच्यामध्ये डिजिटल इंडियावर देखील मोठा भर देण्यात आलेला आहे. मात्र करदात्यांची या बजेटने सध्या तरी निराशा केलेली दिसते, कारण टॅक्स स्लॅब जैसे थे असल्याची स्थिती पाहायला मिळते.
एबीपी माझा, उघडा डोळे बघा नीट.